But much more important than this, Johnny, is Dr. Sakharov's letter to the New York Times. And Dr. Andrei Sakharov, after all, is a very important Soviet citizen who was at the top of the Soviet establishment for some 30 years. He invented the Soviet H-bomb. He had every door in the Kremlin open to him. And now he's a dissident, as you know, the leading dissident, in exile in his own country, in the city of Gorky.
Right.
He smuggles out a 7,000-word message to the New York Times, in which he warns in no uncertain terms about two things: the penetration and manipulation of our media by the KGB, and links between international terrorist movements and the KGB, the Soviet secret service. Right. And Sakharov says there are people who have been bought in the most direct sense of that word, and not always with money. And he says, I'm referring to a great many businessmen, a great many writers, a great many journalists and intellectuals. And coming from Sakharov, that has to be taken seriously, because he was at the top, as I say, of the Soviet establishment, and he knows what's going on behind the scenes.
Don't you, in a way, though, find that the publication of this article goes against what you're saying? You're saying that in many newspapers, things are not printed, which in any way are offensive, and yet an article like this does come out.
And it came as a big shock to a lot of people.
And in fact was printed, so doesn't that give the opposite view of what you're saying?
It's to the eternal credit of the New York Times that they did publish it, but what was strange is that this was barely picked up around the world. Another case, which has just come to light since our book was published, is Pierre-Charles Pathet in Paris. He's 70 years old, a very well-known French journalist who's just been convicted, sentenced to 5 years in jail by a French state security court on charges not of classic espionage, but disinformation, working directly for Directorate A of the KGB. And by the end of his career, the articles were being written for him in the Soviet Union, and they were being published in the French press under his byline as his own article.
Okay, when we come back, let's talk about our own CIA in relation to the KGB and get some kind of an analogy there. We'll be right back.